Welcome to the video, you guys. Today we're talking about my experience buying a house. A month before I decided to buy this townhouse, which I'm sitting in right now, sitting in the bedroom, I told a friend that I would never move out of, actually it was less than a month, but I told a friend that I would never move out of my mother's house. I liked living there. I liked the cheap rent. I was very happy. I never wanted to be a homeowner. The idea of going to Home Depot on the weekends, the idea of doing all the little repairs that needed to be done, everything was kind of on your shoulders to take care of, did not appeal to me at all. I also really like the idea of keeping my fixed costs low. And there's no better way to do that than living with your mother, especially in the early days. So why was I living with my mother? When I got out of residency, I was about 37 years old. And my father was ill or declining. So my plan was to move home and help my mother take care of him while I was working, obviously. He passed away before I moved home, but the plan stayed in place for me because my mother was intent on helping me pay my loans off, meaning that she's going to give me a place to stay. I was definitely the only one putting money towards them. It just seemed to make sense. I had learned about personal finance during that pretty much the last year of residency, and I was really ready to live like a resident or like a med student. In this case, I was going to live with my parents again and focus my every dollar on paying off those loans. So what changed? So when I paid off my loans, my mother gave me a little grace period. I had about 3 months after I paid them off, I think, before she started charging me rent and started making me pay the property tax on the land. I think at that time I was already paying for our cell phone bills. She has cable, so she had that wrapped up in there, but I would pay our bills because taking my bill away from Verizon and lumping it with hers made it so that my bill was at least $10 cheaper or something like that. So I was game for that. So I had that couple months. I was really starting to save, all the money that I was putting towards my loan, I just diverted to my savings. I was able to start giving the full contributions toward my 401k. I was already paying off doing a Roth IRA, backdoor Roth IRA, and I hadn't started doing a high yield savings account at that time, but I was able to open a brokerage after filling all those other buckets. And I was just throwing money in there. And I was spending. I definitely increased my lifestyle a little bit. I had bought some clothes. I had sold a lot of my clothes in residency because every dollar I could find, I was trying to have so I could pay my loans off or just, increase that budget or do, have that extra income coming in. So some things I do regret actually selling, like my coat collection was very nice, but on the whole, it was great to be a little less, have a lot of less stuff in general. I had that 3 to 4 months. I started paying rent and property taxes, probably like $21,000 a year in all, something like that. So nothing crazy. Whatever I was paying was definitely better than, what I'm paying now with my own house, but it really wasn't about that in the end. So just one thing was having very little space in general. So I was pretty much stay in my room, which is the size of my residency apartment. My whole apartment was the size of the room at my mother's house, which is not, bad. During COVID, we converted one of the bedrooms into a gym since we couldn't go to the gym anymore and got Peloton. I basically had most of my time I spent in my room, was home or in the gym and in the kitchen, making food and whatnot. And of course, my boyfriend has a house. He just lives in a town that's like 20 minutes away. So it was a little annoying to go to all the time, but I was there a fair amount. There's also no big problems. My mother and I get along really well. She's like one of my favorite people in the world. But of course, with anybody you live with, especially your mother, you're going to have interactions that are just, you probably wouldn't have, first of all, if you didn't live together. And second of all, you're always going to be the child, even though you're like, I'm 40 years old. Come on. No, I'm still in her house. So at some point it kind of became this, half these things that I'm having to do, these arguments, if I didn't live here, it just wouldn't be so bad. So the other thing was that I had bought the Peloton treadmill. It's a big I call it like Big Bertha. It's huge and it's super heavy, hard to move. And when we moved it in, the movers brought it upstairs and I was like, man, I don't think I can ever move out because this treadmill is too heavy to move anywhere. So that was my limiting belief. I was like, I can't go anywhere because this treadmill can't go anywhere. And I'm always going to have this treadmill. The last straw, what really made me move out was it's end of September 2024. And I don't know, my mother, I didn't do something she wanted me to do. See one of her friends or go with her to some party or something like that. Something I might have actually, it's probably one of these things that I should have gone to, but I dipped out at the last minute. So not very mature, but that interaction with her, I think that interaction happened like a couple days after I had to pay the property tax or something like that. And I had no real space of my own. I really wanted to sit downstairs sometimes. And it's not like she was keeping me from sitting downstairs, but it's a comfortable place, of course, is in my bed, always. But it was very just a limiting in the terms of space and limiting because it's her space. Everything is arranged the way she wants it to be. And I didn't clean the kitchen right, put the dishes away exactly where they're supposed to go. And I did have chores. Then it was a problem because it really is her space. I talked to my brother. My brother is a real estate agent. He's a realtor. He has his own business. And I was like, I'm thinking about getting a place. And before I called him, I was actually thinking to myself, okay, I could totally get an apartment, even like a 2-bedroom apartment would be great. I would be not paying too much rent compared to my income. I could probably move super close to work. It would be pretty easy to just get an apartment. And then I was thinking, oh my gosh, that treadmill. I'm definitely gonna live on the top floor in an apartment because I've lived below people before and everything that's on the internet about that is true. Just what are you doing up there? So I would never live on the bottom floor, middle floor, whatever. I have to be the top floor in an apartment. But with that treadmill, I would be that annoying neighbor making all these crazy noises because that treadmill is really loud. It's like, well, I can't do that. I have to rent something bigger. And then I was like, well, maybe I shouldn't rent. Like, I know where I want to live. I know where I'm going to be working. At this time I had I had shifted jobs to a place that was about 5 minutes from my mother's house and 5 minutes from where I'm currently living because I live half a mile from my mom. I was like, maybe I should buy a house. And then it really just opened up. It was, I don't know, Disney. Yeah, what am I doing? I should think about this. I know where I want to be. I'm not trying to move away from here anytime soon. And I had to think about it, not like an investment kind of. The place you live is not really an investment, but I was thinking I could find something that I really like. This could be a forever home, honestly. Yes, one day I might move with my boyfriend, but he's got 2 kids, and so it's not going to be for a little while. I think it was the 26th when I spoke to my friend. My friend was moving back in with her parents. She and her children were moving in with her parents because somebody was willing to pay a lot for their house, and she was like, hey, I can move home. She could use the help. And I just feel like a little conflicted about it. And I was just like, that's all other people. You feel like other people are going to judge you. Our age, which was, 42 at that time, I was just like, who cares? And I still feel that way. I am a team, live with your parents for as long as you can, especially if you're doing something. If you're just smoking weed all day, probably not. But if you're actually working, trying to achieve something, why wouldn't you? And I mean, even if you are smoking weed all day, at least you're saving on that rent or mortgage payment. Anyway, that's not the point. I just let her know that I was living with my mother and that I probably would be for a long time. After that weekend, that's when my mother and I had that little agreement about me not showing up for something. And then that next day, so October 6th, maybe my mom and I had that little fight. So on the 7th, I would have talked to my brother. That's not true. I mean, it was even faster than that, than 1 week. Let's pretend like it was the 7th when I talked to my brother. My brother was on it. So he lives about an hour away from me. He's not a real estate agent in this town, but he was like, I got this. Starting the 18th, he just started handling everything. On the 24th, I'm a little off on the timeline, maybe, but I know that I talked to my friend somewhere around September 27th. Things escalated with my mom somewhere around October 5th or 6th. And then on 7th, I probably would have just floated the idea to my brother who took off and ran with it. He was like, yeah, let's get this going. Let's get this going. And I think after I said it, things were in motion because I had been looking at Zillow and I was just kind of, am I really going to give up this amount of rent, which is not that bad? Am I going to move this huge treadmill. Really, the treadmill figured into it a lot. I don't know if you've ever seen this thing, but I love it, and it's just too big to move. So you know what? Yes, let's just might as well look. It's not going to happen. There's no way this is going to actually happen. Things don't just come together like this. So if the perfect thing happens, let's just leave ourselves open to it. And hey, it's not going to happen anyway. On October 18th, my brother, this is the place I'm living in, it was the first place he saw. He's like, this is perfect. And it's a little close to this intersection. I don't know if that's a great idea. And then he was like, no, we really should look at it. Literally, again, half a mile from my mother's house. So I drove the street that it's on, and I was like, oh, actually it's not right on the intersection. It is set back from the street, and it's a little further in. There's not a crazy loud street. I was like, okay, yeah, we should definitely look at it. And then I was finding other places right near my work I could even walk to work from. And I showed him the picture. He's like, you're not going to like it. We can see more than one thing. I was just, we should see more than one thing. We can't just see one place. It's not real life. On the 24th, we toured this place. So this happened to me with college. I took a step onto the place where I went. I went to school on the West Coast, undergrad, and I stepped onto the campus. I was like, this is it. So sometimes I just know what is right. And I walked into this place, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. So they had a garage. I wanted a 2-car garage because of the garage gym and everything. But there was 1-car garage, fit my treadmill, fit my car. That's great. And walked in and everything. It's an interesting place. I don't think I would have picked a lot of things, but together it all works. There's a lot of embellishment. The ceilings are just interesting. Just everything is still extra, but it is gray and moody, and I really like it. I took a step in here and I was like, oh my gosh, this place is the only place. This is perfect. And then we went to the other place that I had seen, get an idea, it was a little cheaper, I think almost $50,000 cheaper. And I was just like, hey, let's just see. And it was and no garage, which is one of the stipulations I really wanted. I was like, wow, this place or bust. So I'm trying to look on my notes to see when I put in an offer. So I saw the townhouse on the 24th. Oh, we put in the offer on the 24th, the day that we saw it. Some other people were touring it too. My brother was like, wow, this place is pretty hot. You might want to just offer for a price. And I was like, no, I'm not offering the $400,000. $400,000 was my hard limit. I really didn't want to go over that, even though I was okayed for $700,000, which I think is bananas. Because who wants to live that house for? Anyway, I think I want to put an offer of like $391. My brother's like, don't do that super low ball. He's like, let's do $392. 2 is one of his favorite numbers. I don't know. So we ended up putting in the offer of $392. That night after we put in the offer, I was having these weird dreams, and I was just like, okay, it's really happening. I was already getting very attached to this place, but it was just, what are you going to do when they counter? Like, what are you willing to spend? And in my lucid dreaming, I don't know what was going on. I was thinking $395. It's like repeated. I don't know if I was dreaming or awake, but I don't think I would go above $395. That's up to my hard limit. Then I was at work the next day, and just wondering, I think I have some text messages I'll put up just to show you what was going on, but I think I was wondering get back to us. Maybe it had been 2 days, I'm not sure. I was at work and I was driving home actually, because I'm close enough to drive home for lunch, and my brother texted me, or maybe he didn't, maybe he tried to call me, so I just called him back, and he was like, so they didn't accept $392, but they countered, and the counter offer was $395. And I was like, shit, I'm buying a house. This is insane. How the timeline, how everything just kind of fit together, how I knew it was meant to be, thinking that like $395 in my lucid dreaming state, and then having it actually them like counter with the exact number that I was willing to pay. I was just like, what is this? So that's the story. But then comes the money part. I'm buying the house. I am agreeing to the $39,000 that, was in my mind to begin with. And we start the paperwork. My brother draws up the contract and sends it to me to sign. I sent it back right away. I don't know anything about home buying, really. I started listening to a couple podcasts probably, but I still don't understand it. Wait, but what if somebody else gets in there and makes an offer? He's like, well, this is actually a contract, so they can't do that. But I was still paranoid. But the entire time, until I got the keys, I'm paranoid that the house is going to be ripped away from me. The paperwork starts. So it is just an amazing amount, just almost like going go into residency, you have to have your ID. You have to show, I had to show my residency certificate. I had to show my medical school certificate. I had to send in my firstborn. I had to send in just every little thing, including every single basically bank account that I ever had. They were paranoid about me, I think. I was doing a doctor mortgage or whatever they're called. And I guess they're used to that very high student debt, having a big file for credit reports and everything. And so since I had paid off my loans, they did all of this other information, and they needed to see my 401k, and they needed to see all this stuff. So I guess they're saying that I had a thin file, which to me is like, look, I've paid off a big debt before. How can you not understand that I'm good for it? All of that information had to go in, and then I had to give due diligence check. I'll try to put up little portions from my budget of all the little things, but due diligence checks were $4,000. That was right away. $4,000 goes away. And then a little later, I had to do earnest money check, which is, they're both just showing good faith. This is going forward. The earnest money is like the thing you just like will never get back. I think if somehow everything falls through on the inspection or something, you're going to, it's just got, it's like bye-bye, money flying away. $8,000 just right there coming from my high yield savings account. Then the inspection was, I don't know how much it was. Again, I'll put up something so you can see how much these things were. I had the inspection coming up. I tried to stave off, just not spend on buying things right away, because my brother is a real estate agent. He just talked about all the stuff that he had from other houses and whatnot that I should look at before I'm buying anything for the house. I tried to do that, but on November 15th, I was like, let's start spending. So I think I do a whole separate video about the spending, because that spending November, December, January, pretty much, I think it was about 3 months or 2.5 months of, it was my job spending to furnish this house and decorate it the way I wanted to. I didn't even like decorating before this. I had no interest. I had never been into Home Goods. And then that was my favorite place. Anyway, I think I'm gonna do a whole separate video on that, because it's amazing how things escalated. And my hobby was going to these stores and finding things for this house. And then ultimately I just stopping a low spend 3 months because I wanted to make up for a crazy spend where I just basically spent my whole paycheck for this period of time. I also am going to put up, the things you forget about. So plumber had to come, the electrician had to come for my Ring doorbell. I tried to do it myself via YouTube, but I just couldn't get over the electricity part. I don't know. So I got somebody to help me. And then the movers were 2 separate charges. At this time, I was learning more about home ownership. I just wanted to know how to take care of my house and the things I needed to do. I was looking at Reddit, of course, on YouTube, of course, listening to podcasts. With those podcasts, all that education, there was just so certain things that I just wish I had known. I would have definitely done some things differently. It closed on December 9th, 2024, and today is June 1st, 2025. Do I regret this at all? It's been like 6 months now. Not at all. Love this place. It has definitely had to mind shift, sending all this money away to spending certain amounts on everything. But I definitely purchased within my budget with the amount that I feel like I can spend on a house. And then this house had all those things, those attributes that I wanted. So it makes me smile every day that this is my place. So my advice for people who are thinking about buying a home, don't buy too young. In my 20s, and honestly, in my early 30s, probably, I was moving every 2 years. You really don't know where you want to be, and you don't want to be saddled down by a house where you're like, oh man, I'm not going to break even. You want to keep your house for at least 5 years, but really 7 years would be better. I would say that being too young and not being settled in your life, buying a house and not having a steady job or one that you're going to be at or that you love, it's not a great idea. The other thing is, I think that at 25 or whatever it is that some people want to buy a house at, home maintenance to me, like, no, you don't want to be doing what I did today, draining my front loading washing machine to make sure that it's not getting waterlogged and cleaning the filter, doing that stuff that you do every month. That stuff was on my radar at 20, 25, 26, really until this year. And then I become super interested in my space. And I don't know if that happens to everybody when they buy a house, but I am really committed to maintaining this place. And I don't think I would have had the wherewithal to do that in my 20s, or just the idea, it probably wouldn't have crossed my mind. I think the people who owned my house before were younger, and I can tell just like with some things like the grout, it doesn't seem like they paid attention to that cleaning. And it's not no no problem. Like it's fine. But just being able to pay attention and want to upkeep everything, respect the place you live, I just don't feel like I had that in my 20s. Or the money to keep it up, honestly. Another thing about just being younger, I had lived with my mother in the neighborhood or the area that I wanted to be in for 5 years. And I grew up here for 5 years before I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I should buy a place. I'm not moving from here. This is my place. This is my area. Buying a house is completely fine because I plan to stay here. The other thing about money for a house, yes, sometimes you have a parent who's going to pay your down payment, and that's awesome. In my case, because I never thought I wanted to own a house at all, I had maybe $40,000 in my high yield savings account for my emergency fund, whatever. I lived with my mother, not a big deal. But when I paid for my house, for my down payment, I took it from my brokerage account and had to pay short-term capital gains on that. But that's just how it had happened because I just had no idea that I was going to buy a house. So I really wish that I had the money for that in my high yield savings account. So if you are actually thinking like you've always wanted to be a homeowner, that's something you should be saving for. Get that down payment, putting 20% down is a good thing to do. My closing costs were about $8,000, a little more. And then my cost to close, so including my down payment, all that stuff, was $85,000. So sorry, that $85,000 includes the closing costs and everything. But still, it's a lot of money to have on hand, and you want to be able to hold on to the property long enough to even break even would be nice. Don't have plans to move. Of course, things change, but really I plan to be here for at least 5 years. So I talked about having a healthy savings kind of in that talking to the young people thing, but this whole randomly becoming a homeowner, loving it, love going to Home Depot now. I look forward to just putting up shelves in my house, putting the drapes up in my house. I really got into it. Having a good, healthy savings is important because you're going to want to do all of these things to your house, make it yours. And you don't want to go into debt. You don't want to be charging on a credit card because if you can't afford to pay it off, you can't afford to pay your credit card that you're putting on, you really can't afford these things. And it should be a nice, slow acquisition of different things for your house. I would say, especially if you're one of those people who always knew like, oh, I'm a homeowner, start that emergency fund for your house, start the fund for your house. And, speaking of an emergency fund for the house, me having like $30-something thousand in my emergency fund is great, but I need a house emergency fund too because things break, things happen. Having at least 30 grand, if not more, is what I want to do to be safe for the expenses that I inevitably will incur for my house. Research the amount of house you can afford. So if you put into a calculator online, how much house can I afford, you're going to get all these calculators that come up. And depending on your income, you can get hundreds of thousands of dollars more than you really want to spend. So for me, I think I Googled, how much should one's, mortgage be in proportion to their salary. And so I saw the 28% rule. So that's what I want to do. I want to pay like 28%. The 28% rule is based on your gross monthly income. So it's saying that your gross monthly income should include your mortgage and your escrow. Escrow is that lenders will want it to keep. They keep your money and collect it every month so that you have the payment for your insurance, for the taxes, and everything like that. So your mortgage, your interest, your insurance payment, and your taxes should be 28% of your gross monthly income or less. So when I saw that what I wanted my payment to be by doing that calculation, I knew that I didn't want to pay anything more than $400,000 for a house. But it's hard because you start looking at Zillow and, for $425, you can get a 2-car garage that you wanted. You can get all manner of things, just a little extra space, so many things that are just like so much nicer. So really sticking to your guns is important. You would just do your gross yearly income divided by 12 months in the year. So divided by 12 and then times 0.28. And then you'd have that maximum amount that you'd want to pay for your mortgage and escrow. I actually took that number and wanted to do it with my actual monthly income just to see how much I'd be paying because I have HOA, I have different utilities and things like that to pay for. And so I don't want that to be too much of my income. Residency, I think we always used to joke because our first check was basically our rent check. Our whole rent was paid with that first paycheck and maybe we had $10 left over, Target run. And then the second half of that, the second paycheck of the month was something you could actually do something with. I definitely don't want to have one paycheck going to mortgage or just my house bills. The big thing that I did not do was check with a variety of lenders. My brother recommended my lender. I think he's great. I think he really was available by text. He helped me really navigate the home buying system, but to not really do the due diligence and make sure my rate was good. So my rate was 5.99%. And at the end of 2025, that was a really good rate. Dude, it's probably really good right now, actually, in June 2025. Anyway, so to not have gone to different lenders and just seen, especially after that hard credit pull that my lender did, have I think 45 days for other lenders to also pull your credit and look without it being hit another hit or just like separate hits on your credit report. I wish that I had done that, looking around, shopping the rate, making sure that 5.99% was the best rate that I got. And it's a 5.99% ARM, adjustable rate mortgage. I definitely think I want to pay this down in the next 7 years. I need to pay attention to my retirement savings, definitely. I do have a goal to pay this off before the 7 years is up so that I'm not worried about the next rate that could happen after 7 years. In conclusion, you guys, don't buy a house too young. You don't know where you're going to be. You probably don't have the savings you want to have to afford the things that are inevitably going to break. You want to do your due diligence, look around. You want to have a lot of money saved outside of needing to pay your down payment. You want to have money saved in general. Hopefully it was helpful. I love this house again, and I will at some point post a video about all of the spending I did to furnish this house.